Welcome to the realm of infidelity tales, a space where real stories unfold and emotional truths are laid bare. If you're new to this journey, we warmly invite you to subscribe to our channel and support us by giving this video a thumbs up. With just a single click, you help us create even more compelling and heartfelt stories that speak to life, love, and the complexity of human connection. Now, let us begin our tale. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine I would find myself entangled in such a confusing and emotionally charged situation. I was born and raised in a quiet little town, charming, simple, and brimming with the kind of peace one dreams of when longing for stability. I carried with me the hopes of building a life grounded in honesty and joy. Eventually, I married Ryan, my college sweetheart. We were young, full of aspirations, and determined to carve out a future that we could both be proud of. Though our beginnings were humble and our possessions few, the bond we shared felt like the most valuable treasure. At the time, that was enough for me, or so I believed. Looking back, the subtle indicators of what was to come were always there, waiting to be seen. But back then, in the glow of new beginnings, I couldn't possibly have anticipated the path my life would take. When we moved into the cozy little house we had chosen to rent, it felt like a dream. Small, but filled with potential, it had a charming front porch, a cozy living room, and a garden that instantly captured my heart. It was there that I first met Mr. Harris, our landlord. He was in his early 60s, with silver-streaked hair and a kind smile that gave off a grandfatherly warmth. Always courteous, he would drop by now and then to check on the property, ensuring everything was in good shape. I clearly recall the first time he came by to fix a broken fence. His demeanor was gentle and respectful, his tone filled with the kind of calm wisdom that comes with age. At first, I thought nothing of his occasional visits. He seemed genuinely kind, sharing small stories about how the neighborhood had changed over the years. It was charming in its own way, a window into the past. But things began to shift slowly, almost imperceptibly. As Ryan's work required him to travel more frequently, I found myself spending more and more time alone in the house. The days grew quieter, the evenings longer. It was during these lonely stretches that Mr. Harris's visits started to stand out. He would arrive unexpectedly, sometimes with a casual excuse about the plumbing or the fence, other times with no real purpose at all, just to talk. I convinced myself it was nothing, that he was just being friendly. After all, he was our landlord. But something in the air began to change. One warm afternoon, while I was tending to the flower beds in the backyard, he appeared once again. His presence had become more frequent, subtle, but increasingly personal. That day, his visit lasted longer than usual. We chatted about the weather, the garden, even shared a few laughs. But then the conversation turned unexpectedly reflective. "Do you feel at peace here?" he asked, his voice softer than before, his eyes fixed on me with an almost uncomfortable intensity. I hesitated. I did feel content, or at least I had. But lately, with Ryan gone so often and the house so quiet, I had begun to feel a kind of emotional loneliness I wasn't ready to admit to anyone, not even myself. I smiled politely and gave a non-committal nod. But Mr. Harris didn't let it go. "Sometimes," he said, "we don't realize how much we need someone to truly listen to, genuinely see us until that need becomes a void." His words lingered in the stillness of the yard, echoing louder than the chirping birds or the rustling leaves. I brushed them off at the time, unsure what to make of them. But the memory of that afternoon stayed with me. As the weeks passed, the subtleties in his behavior became harder to ignore. Compliments once innocent now held a weight they hadn't before. He noticed things others didn't: how I styled my hair, how neatly I kept the house, how I managed the garden with such care. His attention, once flattering, began to feel too focused, too pointed. One quiet evening, while Ryan was away on another business trip, I curled up on the couch with a book. The house was silent, save for the soft hum of the fridge and the ticking of the wall clock. Then suddenly, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, there stood Mr. Harris, his familiar smile stretching across his face. "I was just nearby," he said smoothly. "Thought I'd stop by and see if everything's okay." His voice was warm as always, but something about the unannounced visit set me slightly on edge. Still, I stepped aside and allowed him in. His presence had become somewhat routine, so I didn't question it aloud. He sat down across from me, and our conversation unfolded like all the others. But there was an unmistakable tension in the air, an energy that clung to the space between us. His eyes lingered on me more than usual, the silence between words stretching longer, his posture leaning subtly closer. At one point, his words struck a nerve. "You're rare," he said gently. "There aren't many people like you, those who really notice the world, who care deeply about what they do." The compliment on its surface was harmless, but the tone in which it was delivered sent a chill racing down my spine. There was meaning behind it, something left unspoken, but powerfully implied. I felt my body tense. I curled my legs beneath me, retreating slightly into the corner of the couch. A nervous laugh escaped my lips, more a defense than a response. I tried to reset the tone, but he noticed the shift. He didn't move away. Instead, he edged just a little closer, his voice still kind, but unmistakably more personal. "You're lonely," he said, not as a question, but a statement. My mouth opened, but no words came. I didn't know how to respond, because a part of me knew he wasn't wrong, and that truth terrified me more than anything else. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The room fell into a silence so thick it felt almost solid. His eyes, soft yet searching, rested on me like a weight I couldn't escape. I wanted to stand, to make an excuse, to distance myself, but I didn't. Not yet. There was an undeniable edge lurking beneath, the surface of that I couldn't overlook. "Didn't mean to make you uncomfortable," said his voice barely above a whisper. "Our presence is truly valued and recognized. Hannah, you possess a remarkable uniqueness that sets you apart." Way he uttered my name left me momentarily breathless. Heart raced within my chest, leaving me at a loss for words. I yearned to utter anything to shatter the suffocating silence. The words eluded me. I felt ensnared in that instant, immobilized, and unable to move for I had the chance to utter a word. Mr. Harris rose to his feet. I nodded, my throat parched, and observed him as he departed from the house. As the door clicked shut behind him, released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I lingered before the door, my gaze fixed upon it, as if time itself had come to a standstill, grappling with the chaos of recent events. Never before had I experienced such a profound sense of conflict within myself. A fragment of my being yearned to confide in Ryan about the turmoil that had been unfolding, yet another fragment recoiled in shame, gripped by the fear of his potential judgment. I had no intention of creating any issues. I wished to avoid instilling any doubt in him, or even more concerning provoking his anger. Yet, as I pondered further, it became increasingly clear that I could no longer dismiss the emotions Mr. Harris was stirring within me. Felt wrong, and I had no desire to foster it. Steely couldn't dispel the notion that his visits held deeper significance than he revealed. What was I meant to doubt? With the passage of time, Mr. Harris's visits grew increasingly regular. Whenever he visited, a familiar wave of discomfort and unease washed over me. Attempted to dismiss it, it grew increasingly difficult to overlook. Possessed an enigmatic quality that sent my heart racing, leaving me puzzled as to the reason behind it. Understood the necessity of caution, aware that I must prevent any situation from spiraling beyond contriate. I sensed that beneath the surface a transformation was quietly unfolding. I was unaware of the profound depths that awaited me as the days slipped into weeks. Tension between Mr. Harris and myself intensified. I had yet to share with Ryan's peculiar encounters I had experienced with our landlord. A part of me was apprehensive that he might not grasp my intentions, sir. Even more troubling that he could become angry and distressed with me. In the end, I was merely attempting to extend a gesture of friendliness. It was merely casual conversation offing. Beyond that that was the mantra I repeated to myself whenever Mr. Harris appeared at the house without warning, attempting to dismiss the unease that was steadily creeping within Myatt. The discomfort had grown too palpable to dismiss any longer. The image of Mr. Harris lingered in my mind, particular the way his gaze had met mine, how his fingers had brushed against the armrest of the couch during that singular visit. It felt as though he was reaching out, attempting to forge a bond that transcended the ordinary boundaries of neighborliness, the typical landlord-tenant relationship. I found myself revisiting that moment repeatedly in my thoughts, with each iteration intensifying the tension inside me. And a serene Tuesday evening, I found myself solitary in the kitchen, meticulously chopping vegetables for dinner. Cooking had always been a source of joy for Myatt. Tonight, it seemed to transform into a burden, rather than a solace. My mind wandered an unsettling sense, lingering that an event loomed on the horizon as I began to sprinkle the spices onto the chicken. Unmistakable chime of the doorbell echoed through the air. My heart fluttered momentarily as I gazed through the kitchen window. I spotted Mr. Harris at the door, his familiar warm smile lighting up his face. It had been a few days since I last laid eyes on Hyman, while relief should have washed over me, unsettling, not twisted in my stomach. Instead, with a swift motion, I dried my hands on the towel and hold deeply and approached the door. Good evening, Hannah. Mr. Harris greeted with a cheerful tone as I swung the door open. I trust I'm not intruding upon anything importante. Not at Ali, replied, mustering a smile that felt more like a mask than a gesture of warmth. I moved aside to grant him in triumph. He crossed the threshold with an ease that suggested it was the most ordinary act imaginable. I cast a quick look around, his gaze momentarily resting on the kitchenware. I had been busy preparing dinner. It smells wonderful in hurry, remarked, his eyes lingering on the meal I was preparing. I nodded politely, acknowledging the compliment. Uncertainty lingered in my mind about how to reply. It's merely a straightforward meal for dinner, nothing out of the ordinary. You always say that, Mr. Harris chuckled, but you have a knack for turning the simplest things into something extraordinary. The compliment was pleasant, I suppose, yet it carried a different weight when it came from him. It was unlike the praise I had received from friends, or even from Ryan himself. He carried a certain gravity, as though he perceived something within method transcended mere concerns of the meal. The dwelling, an unsettling sensation crept over me once more. I endeavored to cast it aside. I expressed my gratitude, dismissing it lightly. That anything you require? Take it you've come to inquire about something. Mr. Harris's expression underwent a subtle transformation. He appeared to pause momentarily before offering his reply. I was hoping we could have a brief conversation. It has been some time since we last engaged in a meaningful dialogue. To my astonishment, we often shared polite greetings during his visits, had yet to engage in a lengthy discussion. I was aware of his frequent presence in the vicinity, yet I hadn't anticipated his desire for a more profound conversation. A surge of anxiety coursed through Myatt. I nodded all the same. Of course, we can take a moment to sit together. I guided him into the living room, motioning for him to settle onto the couch. I found myself seated opposite him in the familiar chair that had become my spot during those evenings when Ryan and I would indulge in our favorite shows. An uncomfortable hush enveloped the room before Mr. Harris broke the stillness, his voice carrying a weight of seriousness I had never encountered in him before. Started off at a leisurely pace. Recently, I found myself reflecting deeply on life and the way it evolves over time. Can easily become ensnared in the routine of daily life, obscuring the true essence of what holds significance. Uncertainty clouded my thoughts as I pondered his direction. I understand your perspective. I replied with care amidst the hustle and bustle of life. It can be challenging to remember what truly matters. Mr. Harris inclined his head's gaze probing into my own precisely. It is equally vital to pause and reflect, ensuring that we are genuinely experiencing life rather than merely existing in a routine. His words carried an unsettling weight, leaving me at a loss for how to reply. Uncertainty clouded my thoughts as I pondered his implications, and a part of me hesitated to delve deeper into the unknown. Hannah, he murmured, inkling his body ever so slightly toward her. It's difficult to articulate it from the moment we met. I've always appreciated our conversations. You've left a thoughtful impression on me countless times. I've reflected on our conversations and the manner in which you present yourself. Your remarkable essence is truly beyond words, and my admiration for yours deep. My breath hitched in my throat. His words carried a gentle warmth, yet they resonated with the weight of a secret unveiled. Manner in which he uttered those words sent my heart into a frantic passithou, not with any sense of delight. A sudden wave of entrapment washed over me, leaving me uncertain of my next move. Thoughts surged through my mind, searching for the right word, say anything that could ease the thick tension hanging in the air. I don't know what to say, I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. Thank you for your kind words, Mr. Harris, but I must inform you that I'm committed to my partner and I value maintaining respectful boundaries in all relationship. Appeared unfazed by what I had said, reclined in his chair, his gaze fixed on me for a moment. This expression, a mystery, I understand here, murmured, his tone laced with a hint of regret. I wish to avoid causing you any discomfort, Hannah, yet I cannot ignore the emotions that reside within me. His words surged through me like a jolt of electricity. I had previously listened to him voice his admiration for Myatt. This moment felt distinctly unique. His gaze there lingered a depth and intensity that spoke volumes. A surge of fear and confusion washed over Methis had transcended the realm of a mere friendly landlord's inquiry. It had evolved into something more complex, something I found myself ill-equipped to navigate. I have no desire to create any discord between you and your husband, Mr. Harris. Continued, that I can no longer pretend that I am not drawn to you. I simply had to express my feelings to you. Words eluded me. I parted my lips, yet the words eluded me. I found myself in a delicate position. The last thing I wished was to cause him pain, yet I was equally reluctant to lead him to believe in possibilities that might never come to fruition. What course of action was I meant to take in this predicament, though? Can I convey to him that I am married and have no desire to engage in anything beyond my relationship with Rihanna? Last I inhaled deeply, my heart racing within my chest. Mr. Harris, I stated with conviction, I appreciate your honesty, but I must be straightforward with you. I respect your honesty. I believe it's important that our connection stays professional. A lengthy silence enveloped Usand. I caught a glimpse of the disappointment that danced in his eyes, cast his gaze upon his hands, then nodded with a measured deliberation. I understand, he murmured softly. I apologize if my actions caused you any discomfort. It was never my aim. I noted a wave of relief sweeping through meth. Tension that once enveloped us appeared to fade, yet it gave rise to an unsettling aftertaste that lingered in the air. A lingering sensation enveloped me, undeniable certainty that nothing would return to its former state. Mr. Harris's emotions for me seemed destined to persist regardless of my willingness to confront them. Rose to his feet, and I mirrored his action. Thank you for listening, he said, his voice gentle, yet tinged with a trace of melancholy. I shall allow you to enjoy your evening in peace. I want you to understand that I hold your boundaries in high regard, Hannah. I simply wish to convey my feelings to you. I managed to conjure a smile, concealing the turmoil that continued to simmer within Meth. Thank you, Mr. Harris, I expressed. Until we meet again. As he stepped through the door, I lingered for a moment, gazing at the vacant spot he had just occupied. A tempest of thoughts swirled within me. Was beyond my comprehension the events that had just unfolded. I was married to Ryan. I found myself engaged in a conversation with our landlord. What was happening, and why did it seem as though my entire existence was gradually coming apart at the seams? I shook my head, striving to cast aside the lingering doubts I needed to concentrate on my life with Ryan, to recall the love and dedication that bound us together. A persistent whisper within me suggested that this was only the beginning of something much larger. Following my discussion with Mr. Harris, I endeavored to banish the entire affair from my thoughts. I was determined to keep my relationship with Ryan intact, and I certainly had no desire to any more complications with our landlord. Yet despite my attempts to bury my emotions, they lingered, refusing to fade away. The weight of guilt and confusion hung in the air, leaving me in a perpetual state of second guessing. The encounter several days later, Mr. Harris made another unexpected appearance. Pang of anxiety gripped my heart as the sound of the doorbell echoed through the airfowl. I felt unprepared for yet another uncomfortable exchange. I understood that I must confront it directly. I pushed the door open, striving to maintain my poised. Greetings. Hannah welcomed me, his tone both inviting and measured. I wanted to reach out and confirm that all remains well with the house. I inclined my head, mustering a smile. All is well, Mr. Harris. I appreciate your inquiry. Appeared to pause momentarily before proceeding. I've been reflecting deeply on my previous words. It was never my intention to cause you any discomfort. I acknowledge your limits and I honor them. I simply felt the need to express what was on my mind. I gazed at him for an extended moment, sensing the gravity of the words he had uttered. I needed to assert myself at this moment. Uncertainty had no place here. I appreciate your understanding, I responded, but I must be explicit. I am united in marriage. My attention is devoted to my marriage with Ryan, and I must not permit any distractions to intrude. I appreciate the professional bond we share, but that is the extent of it. Mr. Harris's expression softened. A trace of melancholy lingered in his eyes. Nodded slowly, embracing my words with quiet acquiescence. I understand, he murmured softly. I apologize if I crossed any boundaries. I inhaled deeply, a wave of relief washing over my. It's all right. I simply wish to confirm that we share a mutual understanding. With a subtle, respectful nod, he pivoted and made his exodus. He turned to leave. I lingered in the doorway, observing his retreat, a swirl of emotions stirring within me. Sense of melancholy washed over me, realizing it had come to this. Yet a flicker of gratitude emerged for having finally established the boundaries I so desperately needed. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ryan and I gathered around the dinner table, and in that moment I experienced a profound sense of presence that had eluded me for some time. Recent events lingered heavily upon my mind, yet I understood that I must press onward. My attention had to be directed towards what truly counted: me family, my unwavering commitment to Ryan, and the profound love that bound us together. Is everything all right? Ryan inquired, observing my unusual silence. I smiled at him, to cast aside the persistent thoughts that clung to my mind. Indeed, lost in contemplation. It's a pleasure to welcome you back home, returned the smile, gently squeezing my hand. There's a comforting warmth and returning to the familiar embrace of home. That instant it dawned on me that despite the chaos and intricacies of human feelings, my focus was unmistakably defined. I felt compelled to safeguard the bond one shared with Ryan. I refused to allow anything or anyone to obstruct our path, and I was certain that regardless of the challenges, would navigate through it side by side.